Hello and welcome to the Colts Blue Zone Podcast. I'm Matt Adams. Dave Griffiths is off in Georgia covering the Peach Bowl and the Indiana Hoosiers, but I do have Mike Chappell joining me here today. And Mike, we've got a lot of postmortem stuff to go through. We'll continue to do that as we get through the season and into free agency and the draft and all of that stuff. But for now, we heard from Chris Ballard today. Ballard typically does sort of a year-end news conference. It usually lasts like 30 to 45 minutes. He covers a broad range of topics, and he had quite a bit to say, and I did see somebody on social media had like their Chris Ballard bingo card, it falls on me and all that stuff. We did hear some of those things, but still, it is a nice way to provide a little bit of insight into kind of where his headspace is and where the Colts are. And what did you take away from that today?
Yeah, and there were some of the same talking points that we got from Carly Ursay on Monday,
Right.
Gordon on Monday, to where, there's a sense of urgency, and then we tried to press her. I asked her, does that mean playoffs or else? Well, there's there's never been a higher sense of urgency. It reminded me of one of the all-time favorite movies, Animal House. Was a Delta was put on double secret probation. But no, she made it very clear that the standard has been met. And Chris sort of, said the same thing, because what else can you say? But the talking points, which are not going to satisfy the fan base, is we've got to deal with adversity better, and we've got to find ways to finish games. I can sit here, and if you give me 5 plays, they're in the playoffs. Just 5 plays. Now, a lot of teams can say that, but, A.D. Mitchell dropping the ball against the Rams at the goal line. Make a play at Kansas City.
Pick up a first down there, right?
Either
Game's
Jones
over.
picks up a first down on the pass to Pitt, or make a stop defensively.
Get a sack.
Seattle,
Make
a stop.
100%.
Make a stop for Grant. And again, they get Houston at home. It was 20-16, and they've got the ball at the 25-yard. And that also might have been a game where they missed a PAT.
They missed because they had to have a touchdown there instead of a field goal because they missed the extra point.
It just reinforces the fine line between winning and losing. And the problem is this extends past or previous with this team. 2021 where it just goes to hell.
Right. Oh, absolutely.
The last couple games, and then 2023 where you've got Gardner Minshew missing. Who was it? Tyler Goodson on 4th and 1.
Yep.
And then last year they were in a decent spot until they just melted down. So something's not right. Something's missing. Finishing is such an ambiguous term, but it's true. I think I had them 3-7 in one possession games. Flip that around, and they're in the playoffs. But again, every team can point to this. They shouldn't have beaten Denver. So
right. They got a break there.
There's one you get back. So yeah, not good enough. And the problem is 8-2, 0-7. Will the real Colts stand up? Which is it? We talked about it last week. I really get irritated when fans say, "Well, they were regressing before Jones's injury." No, they weren't. No, they were pretty darn good. At 8-2, they were first in the league in scoring, first in the league in yards per game, first in the league in yards per play. John, you remember who's the MVP?
Yeah.
Is it Jonathan Taylor, Daniel Jones?
Man, it seems like a long time ago.
Right. But in my mind, it just puts the light brighter on the importance of quarterback, and we'll get into that with their priorities moving forward. But if you lose your quarterback, they didn't lose their quarterback; they lost their quarterback, and they'd already lost their backup quarterback.
Right.
So they were on what turned to be their 4th when they went to get Phillip Rivers. Few teams could have overcome that, but this is where they are. And one of the big takeaways is Chris said he and Carly had I'm sure it was a long meeting, to where she looked at him and said, "Have you lost your what she call it, your juju or your shimmer?"
Juju or your shimmer, I believe.
Chris Ballard has never used the word shimmer in his life.
That's what I thought too.
But he says he hasn't. He believes in himself. He believes in what he does. He believes in how he does it. But let's not kid ourselves. This is a playoff or bust year. Perhaps for both.
Yeah, I mean,
Chris and Shane.
I forgot to look up Steichen's contract. Is he?
He's through 2028.
Okay.
And obviously, this is Chris's last year. 2026 is so, and it should be. it's really hard to defend. It's almost impossible to defend the 8 years prior with, 2 playoffs, 1 playoff win. Although, as we were talking before the air, I think it was they've won a playoff game more recently than the Pittsburgh Steelers have. So, there are people worse off than you. So, yeah, it's got to be that. And you've got your list here. Their priorities moving forward is Daniel Jones. It starts with Daniel Jones.
Yeah, it's funny because the Colts currently do not have Daniel Jones under contract.
Right.
They signed a 1-year deal worth about $14 million last offseason. He competed, as we know, for the job with Anthony Richardson Sr., won that training camp battle, came out, played tremendous football for about 10 games.
Right.
And then, about that, he'd had the broken fibula. That clearly limited his mobility, limited their effectiveness, limited their run game, as it turned out for the couple games he got back. Tore his Achilles, but again, and so that we're looking at a recovery from that. He's had the surgery, didn't miss a meeting, still participating in all the team stuff, like trying to help out stuff. You saw him in the booth with Riley Leonard's game there.
We've bumped into him twice at Lucas Oil on his scooter.
Yeah, so he's not been with the team on the field, but he's been with the team. And the way that Chris Ballard talked about Daniel Jones today was the way you talk about a guy who you are expecting to be your starting quarterback.
Shane Steichen was the same way.
Yeah, and Steichen was the same way when he talked. What was that, on Monday when he addressed the media, like for the postmortem?
Right.
And again, this is a guy coming off a really bad, I was going to call it catastrophic, but an Achilles injury is a very bad injury, especially if you're a mobile quarterback. And he's not under contract, but they act like he is. So I guess the deal is, Ballard didn't say this. I'm not breaking any news or anything. But it sounds like a deal is pretty much imminent with Daniel Jones in some way.
The question isn't if, it's when and how. It will be done before the new league year, which is March, whatever it is.
Right.
And we all thought this was going to be one of those, when he was 8-2, that was going to be one of those Baker Mayfield, Sam Darnold, which is 3 years, $100 million or change, or a little bit more. But what it's going to come down to is the guaranteed money. It's all about guaranteed money.
Right.
And if you franchise him, it's like $46 million. That's guaranteed.
Guaranteed.
So in my mind, whatever the long term is, it's 3 years and $1 zillion, but 46 million guaranteed. The rest of the money doesn't matter. It's just makeup. It's to allow an agent or whatever to say, hey, look what my guy got. So I think he's back one way or the other. I mentioned hell or high water to Chris, and he said, well, hell or high water, I don't know about that. But they've got, and again, it like you said, there's mutual agreement that they want to move forward together. But Stephen Holder asked a good question. He said, is this short-term or long-term? And he sort of said both.
Yeah, he said this is we're looking at him as a near-term and a long-term solution.
He's 28. Now, we did the same thing, caution, with Carson Wentz.
Right.
Remember that?
Yeah.
And a lot of us thought that, hey, this could be the long-term solution.
Because he was a relatively young quarterback and had shown some promise.
But what we saw from Jones was better than what we saw, with all due respects to our guy who's not here.
Yeah. Well, because they basically needed Jonathan Taylor to run for 1,800 yards in order to keep their head above water.
I went back and looked. So his 3 best seasons, which are 3 of the best seasons by running back in team history, no playoffs.
Can't make the playoffs.
So, but with Jones, yes, the priorities are going to be Daniel Jones, Alec Pierce, and then you can argue, Nick. The safety.
Nick Cross?
Nick Cross. I was going to say Collins. Nick Cross. Do you bring him back? You've already got a ton of money sunk in the position with Cam Bynum. But those are the 2 big ones. And I think anyone who believes that Alec Pierce and Daniel Jones hit free agency, you don't understand how this team values each and how each is going to be a big part of what this team does going forward.
Yeah, we can jump around the rundown a little bit. I had Alec Pierce a little later here, but let's talk about Pierce.
Let's talk the quarterback. You got the quarterback.
Okay.
Let's. You did the outline. So, but no, and then I asked Chris about Anthony Richardson, and he just sort of said, he's got to get.
Kind of some hemming and hawing about this, isn't there?
Yeah, and I guess I understand that. And he brought up there's still vision issues. I'm telling you, and Shane Steichen was the same way. We asked Shane on Monday. I just don't see how Anthony Richardson fits on this team moving forward. I just don't, especially with how you're planning to move ahead with Jones and with the fact that Riley Leonard showed that, this game's not too big for him.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. The moment was not too big for Riley Leonard. I mean, he even played relatively well when he had to get kind of gang pressed into duty against Jacksonville on the road, which we all know how tough of a place that is for the Colts to play, especially. And then he, I know the numbers were pretty good against Houston, but he did a lot of his damage in the first half.
Right.
And that was when Houston was playing a lot
Ballard
of its
said,
guys.
they had their dudes.
Yeah, a lot of their dudes
out there.
Were out there. I mean, they had Stingley out there and Willie Anderson and Danielle Hunter. So I think I saw enough from, I know it's a small sample size, but I mean, knowing what Riley Leonard had done in college, he's a more experienced quarterback coming out of college, having kind of simpatico with Phillip Rivers as well on top of that. I just felt like that's kind of where they felt better about Riley Leonard maybe than we had thought going into it. Although that being said, I think that Ballard intimated that the Colts, when the fibula injury happened, that they maybe were trying to maybe get a veteran quarterback in.
They looked at trade possibilities, and the names would have been what we've all seen: the Russell Wilsons, Jameis Winston, I assume, people like that. And it didn't come up. Nothing came out. Obviously, came out of it. And I guess you could argue then why didn't you think maybe Riley Leonard was a better option than Phillip Rivers?
Yeah.
And they mentioned the knee injury, but I think they already had got the ball rolling on Phillip Rivers when they knew the extent of Leonard's injury. So the only question I would have moving forward, and it was sort of brought up, and he really couldn't answer it today, was considering you've got Jones coming back from an Achilles, and they've said July back on the field, which means ready for training camp at some level. Do you hedge your bet and have do you bring in a veteran quarterback just because? And it's going to be the usual suspects. Do you trade for Mac Jones, who's under contract, I believe, Marcus Mariota? I don't know. I haven't looked. I don't want to go down that path again.
We don't want to have to look, right?
But if you believe that this team, again, with major renovations on defense, the offense is pretty good. The offensive line's coming back, and it showed promise. But do you make certain that you're fortified at quarterback with another veteran just in case Jones isn't ready?
Well, Mike, they can always call Phillip Rivers. Now, I think Phillip's done. Although I will say, after what happened this season, I cannot count anything out.
We asked Phillip that, and he sort of said, "No, I'm done," because he's going back to coach his son, maybe two sons.
Yeah, I think so. I think one's like a freshman.
But I think Gunner's a senior.
Yeah,
and he's just not going to walk away from that because it means so much to him. But no, it was one of the. And this meant a lot to Chris when Rivers came up. He said, "I'm glad, we're talking about that." He said, walking out of the tunnel at Seattle for the start of that game, and he looked at Rivers and he thought that was the most courageous thing he's ever seen a player do.
Yeah, and how can you really argue with that? I mean, the guy hadn't been and played for 5 years and three practices.
I went back and looked at 1,800 days.
Jeez.
And oh, by the way, at Seattle, where you can't hear yourself breathe.
No, that is one of the worst places to play as an offense.
And by the way, their defense was
and they're good defense.
Tops of the league.
Yep.
And oh god,
they should have won.
They should have won the game.
Should have won the darn game.
16-15 with 47 seconds or 42, whatever it was. Should have won the game. So, but what he did was amazing. But it just kind of showed you that this team, I don't want to say it wasn't destined to win because of the injuries, but the big storyline at the end of the season was a quarterback coming back after 5 years, and just fell short.
Say from a fan's perspective, it did make it interesting, and it was kind of fun to have Phillip Rivers back there. It sort of put a little bit of a salve on what was a really unfortunate ending to the season.
And again, these are not excuses; they're explanations.
Right.
Because I did ask Chris Ballard the fact that he did tweak. He said it's so important to grow as a GM and a coach and all this, and I thought he did grow. He adjusted last off season where he got more aggressive.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure.
He signed the biggest free agent contract, like $60 million to get Bynum in here. I can't remember which was first. And then he went out and got the other guy,
right.
Mooney Ward, two $60-some million contracts. This is after getting Jones. And then when you're 7-1, I think it was, they swing the trade for Sauce Gardner because they thought they were that close.
Yeah.
And they might have been. And in every major move they made except Bynum was sabotaged by injury. It wasn't because, well, you really blew money on a player who didn't perform. No, that wasn't it at all.
No.
It was injury. Those aren't excuses, they're explanations.
And the unfortunate part with both Gardner and Ward is that we really don't have any idea whether those moves worked out because, unfortunately, Ward suffered a couple of different concussions and missed long stretches of time.
3 concussions.
Right. And Gardner played a couple of games, then he had that calf strain. They didn't put him on IR. Then they brought him back like the second to last week.
Right.
Then he played a half because the calf was tight. And as we all know, Tyrese Halliburton fans out there, when you got a tight calf, you don't want to mess around with that. So, it's really we just don't know. The results we know for this season they didn't work. Long term, jury's still out a little bit on those moves.
Right, and I haven't looked too much at it yet, but I believe they got $55 million in cap space, roughly, I think.
He said they were in good.
Well, and I've always said that when you look and see cap space, it's sort of a suggestion.
It's all an illusion anyway, right?
Right, it is. It gives you an idea, sort of. Teams can do crazy things. They got, and I think they will. I think they redo Buck's contract. He signed through 26, and their top 3 players need to be addressed contract-wise. It's Buck, it's Michael Pittman, and it's Quentin Nelson. And I think you, at the worst, you extend all 3 of them and rearrange money. I don't think any of them would agree to a pay cut. Quentin certainly wouldn't. Why would he? He's
still performing at a high level.
Right. And he's a guy you can still, guards can play forever.
Right. He's got a long career left. You would hope anyway.
Buck is different. We can get to him, but he's had the successful surgery. He posted on Instagram how every indication sort of is he's coming back. And Ballard said today that he had successful surgery. Anyway, he'll be back next year. But it's a neck injury, and you don't know. But you can create a ton of cap space by redoing those contracts. There might be a player or two that they move on from, and it won't shock me. It may shock the player. So they can if they want to do something in the offseason, and I think outside the team, the number one priority is to find an edge pass rusher.
Oh, absolutely.
I mean, please.
I said the same thing on Monday during the recap.
I posted a story yesterday, and they simply haven't done it through the draft. There's been like 7 players taken in the top 3 rounds.
Like as good of a talent evaluator as Ballard is, and he is a good talent evaluator, they have missed on edge rusher after edge rusher.
Now, offensive line, I'll give you that pretty well. But edge pass rusher, Latu, we'll see. I thought this year was going to be his breakout, and now Lou Anarumo says, well, the arrow's up, and these players really emerge in year 3. One thing that, because it's, and even Latu mentioned in the offseason, before the season, I just know I had a lot of almost sacks. And
we saw that again this year, unfortunately.
And Chris said, there was a lot of those almost sacks. He said he could have had 14. That's a big jump from 8.5. Not one of their draft picks has had more than 8.5 sacks.
Good grief.
The last draft pick to have double-digit sacks was Robert Mathis with 19.5 in 2013.
It's been a while.
So, but they've hit in free agency, or remember they traded. I keep forgetting they traded for Ngakoue, but Justin Houston was good for a year and a half. Ngakoue for a year. Ebukam came in and led him with 8.5. his first year, Eric Walden, Danico Autry. So they've had better luck that way. And at some point you say, yeah, that's how we have to do it. We'll address with our second, third, and on other areas. So they've got to get that pass rush fixed.
Now let's talk Alec Pierce. We teased it earlier in the show here, but Alec Pierce, this is a guy that the Colts drafted in the second round. They've always been high on Alec Pierce and his potential. There was also the thought that because of this quarterback carousel that the Colts have been on, that it is limited, like Pierce's best ability.
More than anyone
else. It's hindered him the most because he is a deep ball guy. Not that he can't do anything else. He's shown he can do other things, but that's his biggest strength, and that's why everybody wants him, because he can get off the line, he can get past the defense, and he can get deep and get up there and catch the football. He is a free agent after this season, and it would behoove the Colts to make sure that they still have Alec Pierce on the roster when the new league year hits.
Oh, don't let him get, if he gets to the market, he's gone.
Right.
It's not like go out there and see what you got and bring it back. No, because somebody's going to blow.
They're going to just truckloads of money.
Right, and Buffalo. You think Josh Allen wants someone like him? Kansas City.
Well, I saw Seattle. Like, what if you paired Pierce with Jackson?
So
Smith and Jigba.
Again, he's not a one. He's not. And if somehow they do something and would move on from Pittman, which I don't. I guess it's possible. Then you need to find another number one type of guy, because I think Pierce is perfect at where he is. I thought the fact that he went into this last game needing 129 yards for his first
got
down.
132
and
before
they
kicked him out of the game.
Not with Riley Leonard out there and how they're going to be concerned, and they just bombs away. But 2 years in a row, he's led the league in yards per catch. First time, as we've mentioned, since Flipper Anderson in 89 and 90. So it's amazing how everyone knows this is his strength, and he still performs.
And that's when you know you're like a great player at your position. Right. When and it goes to a lot of these top flight pass rushers, like your Myles Garrett's and stuff. Everybody knows that this is what you do, yet in key moments you can still do it.
That's why we like to pigeonhole these receivers and all this, but it works. The way this group was put together, and go back and look at when the quarterback was healthy, it worked. Josh Downs was effective, Michael Pittman was effective, and Pierce was off the charts, and then Pierce stayed, with the great finish, and it means something when you've got that 1,000-yard season. It just does. So I think they'll, and he was talking on Monday about free agency. He knows this is a smart guy. He knows he's going to get paid. He knows. The question is how much and from who. I think the Colts will make him the not the best offer, because someone will make him a better offer. But you can't give him the opportunity to see what someone else is going to pay. And he mentioned that. He's working so well with Daniel Jones, and in roundabout way, he's saying, if they bring Jones back, it's going to help my decision to come back here. Well, Jones is coming back. There's just simply no question that Jones will be the quarterback. So I think they get Pierce done. And this is always the good news, bad news of drafting, is when you hit on your guy.
Yep.
Well, if you hit on him, then you got to pay him.
Then you got to pay him.
You hit on Quentin Nelson at number 6 overall. Well, then you make him one of the highest paid offensive linemen ever. And when you hit on Pierce, you hit on Pittman, who was a second rounder, the year or two before that, and you paid him a not great but very good contract.
He got a very good contract.
And you get Pierce done this year, and then if things go well, you've got Josh Downs next year. So it's Pierce. I really think Pierce will be back, because if you give him that 3-day tampering window, which is not tampering, where you can reach out to other teams, someone's going to say, we're going to give you $30 million a year. Yeah. And I don't know the Colts would go that high, but this is a guy. Now, the only thing that he has to improve on is falling to the ground and not smacking his head. concussions are we kind of joke on it, but it's an issue, and he needs to be better because he's that jump ball guy, which is great. But then it's landing and then getting on the ground. So I will be shocked if Pierce and Jones aren't doing this pitch catch thing again next year.
Yeah, I'll be disappointed too, just from a fan standpoint, because, like you said, you don't always hit on your draft picks. You want to, when you get them, you want to keep them around as long as you can, especially when they've turned out to be as exceptional as Alec Pierce.
Well, and again, as much as we've talked about this league, yes, it's a 53-man roster and your practice squad. This is about playmakers. How many guys do you have that make those plays?
Legitimate game breaker.
And the Colts don't have a lot of them. Well, Pierce and JT are two of them, and maybe Tyler Warren as we move forward.
Mm-hmm.
But when you get those guys, where in the week leading up to the game, the other coordinator has to say, we got to take care of this guy, and they just don't have enough of those guys. Don't have enough of them on defense either. But when you got them, you've got to kind of find a way to keep them.
A natural segue there. We talk about defense because Ballard did talk about that a little bit today.
Right.
And one of the headline there for him was the Sauce Gardner trade. And I think everybody understands why the Colts made the Sauce Gardner trade when they did. And at the time, I think all arrows pointed up for this team and for that deal. Ultimately, for this season anyway, the jury's still out on it because, unfortunately, Gardner played a couple of games. He got hurt, as we talked about earlier in the show. And then, he sat out and was not able to do much more after that. So, but Chris Ballard does not view this as like a one-season deal. He got what he described as a premier quarterback who's 24 years old on a relatively team-friendly contract. And even though the Colts gave away 2 first-round picks and a young receiver in A.D. Mitchell, Ballard's fine with it. He would have done the same thing over again, he said today.
Well, again, and the fan base probably would question it now in hindsight, which is so easy to do.
It's so easy to do.
But if this works, if the quarterback stays healthy, because again, if I'm not mistaken, they were 7-1. Mm-hmm. This was pre-injuries. So they thought they were maybe a player away. But it wasn't this year or bust, like you said. This was, again, it's kind of like the Daniel Jones thing. It's short-term and long-term. And when you've got a shutdown corner, it just makes all the difference in the world. And they thought they had 2.
Yeah,
they did. With Mooney Ward. So moving forward, again, he said he would do it again. And the fact, if the team had been right and stayed healthy, and I'm not saying necessarily win the Super Bowl, but make that deep run, get to the AFC title game, then the fans wouldn't think that's the 2 first-rounders were much at all, because you're going to be drafting 29, 30 or whatever. And it's not like losing the premium pick. So this is one where time will tell. 2026, God, how many consequential seasons have we had? And next year is another one with Sauce and with Jones, and JT will be a free agent after next year. So, but you get that lockdown corner. I mean, it's the first one they've had since Vontae.
Yeah, probably, yeah.
And it just makes a difference when you know it.
They had Gilmore for a year, but
yeah, and he was really good.
He was really good.
I don't want to dismiss that,
but that team, it didn't matter, I guess, for that team.
That was the forgetful season.
Yeah, the cursed year. Yes. Although this one kind of was a cursed year.
Yes, it was.
In some respects, in a different way for different reasons.
But it's the trade again. You give it a thumbs up. Now, if it doesn't happen next year and they're 4-13 and whatever, and they blow it all up, then what have you got?
Right. Then you, because you wouldn't have had your first round draft pick for the next year. One thing that it didn't alarm me, but Ballard said he looked back at some of the years where they didn't have a first round draft pick, and he thought that they drafted really, really well. And I think there's probably some things that bear that out, but also it's nice to have a first round pick.
It is. The 1 year that they didn't, when they got rid of, or they traded for DeForest Buckner.
Right.
I'd do that in a heartbeat.
Oh, absolutely. Yes, 100%.
If I can get a guy, that was a top, was it 14, 13 pick or whatever it was, and you're getting a guy who was borderline all-pro and he was 24, 25 every day, I do that. That's one reason that because he said you look with Gardner, who might we get in the draft? Can we get that guy in the draft? Maybe. But I wouldn't want to go into a draft hoping to find a lockdown.
Draft a great cornerback.
Right.
Like,
so
yeah.
it makes sense. But, so it'll be a good trade until it blows up next year. And if that's the case, then the next GM will have to worry about not having a first-round pick in 2027.
Now, I don't have him on the rundown, but let's talk real quickly about Mooney Ward, because he talked to reporters this week, and then he also Ballard mentioned him as well during his news conference, basically saying that, his health is a concern for them. Their top concern is long-term health, and they'd like to have him back, but there's no certainty on that, and they're going to kind of continue to talk it out and hash it out.
Yeah, and again, when we talked to Mooney on Monday, it just sounded like a farewell. It just did, because he said, my daddy wants me to retire, and I'm not going to do that. Well, but then he went on and he talked about, I talked to my wife, or his fiance and my family, and at the end of it, he just said, I've won my Super Bowl. I've been to a couple others. I've made a hell of a lot of money. I've done this, I've done that. And if I walk away, I'll have no regrets. And it just sounded like a guy who has done enough for himself. He's made good money. It's like $98 million, whatever. But the main thing is it's the concussions. He had 3. One was that funky one, serious one, before the Arizona game. But he and then he had another one, came back, and then he had another one, whatever game it was, near the end of the season, and he misses the rest of the season. And he just said that he said whether he was working out or just around the house, and he bumped his head, and he said he got a crazy headache. Well, that means it's lingering. And I just think there's a major concern from him and from the team that these concussions, he's not gotten over them all the way. He even said he came back the second time and he was still dealing with some things, yet he passed concussion protocol. So make of that what you will.
Yeah, funny that, right?
But when you talk to players, you just get a vibe from them. Sometimes you're thrown off by body language or whatever, but this did not sound like a player, unlike Buck, who it's very much in him to play. I got the impression from Mooney that was the last time we'll talk to him.
And it's hard to figure too, not hard to figure, but it's hard to believe that like a guy would come into a season and say, well, if I get one more concussion, then I'm going to call it quit, because that's just, unfortunately, especially once you've had a couple of them, that's a thing that recurs. So if you think that that's going to be a thing that's going to happen again, then you're best kind of to hang up the cleats.
That's a really good point, because he's going to get hit. He came back from the second concussion. Was it against Kansas City? And he got blown up on a blindside block.
Yeah.
And I thought, there you go. But then he went back in the game. So yeah, concussions, and people can say, well, they smelling salts and all that. No, there's a heightened sense of awareness now, players and teams, on concussions. I do think there are some players who will play whatever it takes to still play. But more and more of these players are very conscious of it. They've got that neurologist on the sidelines that'll flag and have a guy come out. So, but whenever you talk about concussions, I've still got a video on my phone of Andrew Luck getting smacked as a rookie against the Packers. Linebacker comes in and just lays him out, and no concussion. And then you see other guys get concussions on plays. So it's very an individual thing, but three concussions in less than the course of a season, and still having some lingering effects, symptoms now. And again, just his tone. I can't get past how he said what he said. I just think this is a guy that would have to be talked into playing, and that's never a good thing.
All right. Also, let's stick with the defense here. Let's talk a little bit. We referred to him a little bit earlier, but we'll go a little more in depth about what Chris Ballard said about Laiatu Latu. 8.5 sacks for the Colts this year. 3 interceptions, including really kind of one of the all-timer plays against the Kansas City Chiefs on that interception was a tremendous play. But still feel like we need a little bit more from Mr. Latu, Chap.
Yeah, that's, again, I posted that thing the other day on the Edge guys, and 8.5 sacks, and when we talked a lot too earlier in the offseason was almost how many almost sacks he had, which there is no category for that.
No.
So, and Chris even mentioned that their plays he needed to finish or almost finish. He said, "Yeah, he would have had like 14 sacks."
No, but he didn't. He had 8.5. Right. So because like when you needed to play against Seattle, we're not there in the backfield.
Right.
When you need to play against this game or whatever, we're not
Right.
in the backfield.
Right, and
it's not all just on him, but I'm just saying.
No, and we talked to Lou Anarumo last week, and I thought this year was going to be the year he took the big leap.
Right,
and
right.
He said,
Apparently that you can delay that.
I guess you can delay the arrow. He said they really expect next year to be his year, and so, many times it takes 3 years. I went back and looked Trey Hendrickson, who Lou had in Cincy. His first 2 years in New Orleans were just not very good at all. He didn't play a ton, and then he just took off. So, but he wasn't taken 14th or 15th overall. The Colts, remember, they had the first. They got their crack at the first defensive player of the
Everybody
draft.
else was offense before then.
So they need more from him, and it's. I guess it's unfortunate for Latu that he's being compared to where he was taken in the draft, but that's what this league is about. And then when you see a Jared Verse taking a few spots below him, making more impactful plays. Although Pro Football Focus has them as pass rushers, they have Latu ranked above Verse, which I don't understand. So they need more, and he'll be the guy that comes back and has to do it because they're going to – I won't use the word blow it up because of the additions they've made, but Samson Ebukam a free agent. He won't be back. Kwity Paye's a free agent. He won't be back.
I don't see
Tyquan Lewis, a free agent. I don't think he's back. That means you've got Latu and Grover Stewart probably back. I don't think you move on from him. And then JT, the second-round pick.
Tuimolo Wow.
Right. I'll let you. I'd butcher the name. And then Neville Gallimore, who's more of a rotational
he's a role
guy
player.
inside.
Right.
So you need, and he talked about someone asking about the priorities, and one of them was getting younger and faster on defense.
Younger and faster on defense. That stuck out to me too.
D-line and linebacker. Someone asked him about linebackers, and we talked about it. He sort of hesitated for like 5 seconds before he got his words in his head that he wanted to talk about. So the front seven has got to be addressed.
He kind of said that he thought that Zaire Franklin and Jermaine Pratt had pretty good seasons. Was kind of how he described it
after the 5 seconds pause.
After the pause, and then you also mentioned how injuries had slowed down Jalen Carlisle, who did not see the field very much.
We saw a little bit last year, and then he barely played this year.
Even when he was back, he didn't see the field very much, and some of that may be learning the system type of stuff and those types of things. You don't want to put a guy in, but on the other hand, we saw the pass coverage we saw from the other linebackers was not tremendous sometimes, so why not change it up? But again, I'll defer to the coaches on that.
And I think we're going to see a totally different linebacker group next year. Whether they move on from Zaire, I don't know. I think he counts $8 or $9 million against the cap, and you can create some space if you want. All I will warn people, I say it all the time, it's easy to get rid of 53 players. Now you need to bring in 53 other players. So it's going to be more selective than that. Whether they think if they bring Zaire back and have another linebacker, I don't want to say similar to Shaq Leonard, but a linebacker teammate that can cover more, better.
That really does seem to be what they're one of the things they're like. The two things that, to me anyway, that stick out is just like either a complementary or just a dominant edge pass rusher and a coverage linebacker.
And
seems
again,
to be their two biggest weaknesses.
As far as I'm concerned, go out and pay for an edge rusher.
And if they've got the money to do it, go and do it, because I think like that's only going to help a lot too. Like if you get somebody else out on the edge, and we love Kwity Paye, like great edge setter, but the proof is in the pudding there on getting to the quarterback. It's just not a strength of his that we saw, unfortunately.
Well, one of the damning stats is that Buck had 4 sacks this year, which is tied for second on the team, and he missed 7 games. That's ridiculous.
Yeah.
So I just think with where they are, draft pick wise, and with the track record of drafting edge guys, I think you go out and you try to pay. Now I don't know what good money means. But I think you try to find a legitimate pass rusher who's a free agent, and if you have to overpay for it, maybe do it. But again, Chris has made it very clear, and I think Carly Ursay-Gordon did as well, is they'll do what it takes. And I think she will be willing to pay free agency wise. She signed off on the moves they made last year. I know Jim Irsay was still, involved last year, but she was more hands on for these moves. So I don't think money will be a factor if they target somebody. Probably not the top 2 or 3 guys, edge rushers, whoever they might be, but they've got to go out and bring in an edge rusher because right now it's not nearly good enough moving forward.
I think that's one thing that kind of struck me when because one of you guys asked Ballard about Carly Ursay-Gordon and is it a different approach than Jim Irsay? And he said, no, not really. They're both looking to improve the football team the best way that they can. But that said, the Colts did make some. They made different moves in this offseason than they have in the past under Ballard.
And is that a coincidence that it was with Carly being sort of
could have been a cyclical type of deal?
Maybe.
It was just time to do it, but
again, when they signed Bynum and Ward, Jim was still involved, not as much as he had been. So I don't think she's just in this to make billions or millions or whatever it is as an owner. Which, as an owner, you've got to be so incompetent to not make money. The question is, how much money will you make?
Right. How big's the payday?
Right, because the structure is such that with the TV deals and all that, you're going to make money. You just are. But I think she's in this to win. I think she got that from Jim. She's committed to putting a good product on the field. She knows it's not been good enough. 5 years is a long time. I've not seen I've not got the list in front of me. It's like this is the 5th longest, or 4th or 5th longest active streak. The Jets are 15, and there's another team or two in front of them. It's unacceptable, and they will do what it takes, and that will mean investing some money in the offseason.
Now, we did hear from Carly Ursay-Gordon this week. On Monday, she had an afternoon press conference where she kind of talked about, because the team, to their credit, on Sunday night, probably to your relief, removed any doubt that Ballard and Steichen were going to be back. And they said, we're gonna back Shane, and we're going to back Chris, and we're going to bring him back for another year. And then Carly Ursay-Gordon talked to the media on Monday to discuss that decision, and her kind of big thing was, we saw enough promise in that 8-2 start. Then adversity struck. We were not able to overcome that adversity, but because of the promise that we saw, we felt confident enough to go and give it another go.
It's always difficult or risky to interpret what she said. Because one thing I asked her when she talked about sense of urgency, I said, well, does that mean, did you tell these 2 guys it's playoffs or bust? And she sort of said, well, that's the playoffs are always our goal.
I felt it was playoffs or bust this season.
Right. Well,
for Ballard especially, specifically.
Right. But, the sense of urgency just rings hollow, sort of, I think. But I don't know how she would have said it other than they either win next year or they're gone. But then you don't know. Maybe there are circumstances next year that impacts that. Again, you have injuries that no one would overcome or whatever. I don't know. But that's where it started with and Shane talked about it on Monday, is, finishing games, adversity. When you get adversity, you've got to handle it better. What all that means, that's management speak for make those 6 plays. 2 plays, 3 plays a game that make a difference, which they haven't done.
Right, and unfortunately, it's a thing that we saw a lot, especially after the bye week. I mean, it started immediately with the Kansas City game.
That's when your margin of error was so slim. Make a play or two, and they didn't do it. But again, they're gonna have to do that with essentially the same group of main players.
Right. There'll be some differences here and there. The roster's always going to get tweaked, but essentially your main guys are your main guys.
So, but it was also obvious, and she sort of said it without saying it because there were follow-up questions, but she put so much more weight on 8-2 than 0-7. And adding to that, almost no weight on 8 years of not getting it done.
That's kind of what got me a little bit was like Ballard's career record's not fantastic. It's under 500.
71, 80-1,
Yeah,
including the playoffs.
I think so. And they hadn't made the playoffs since 2020. See, before that, they'd made it in 2018. No division titles.
Since 14.
Since 14.
You know,
that was Ryan Grigson, right?
There's something to put your hat on, though. Since he's been here, they're the only team that's not finished last in the division. So
Well,
there you go.
Well, the Titans are there.
We're all positive right now.
And the Jaguars and the Texans, who have historically not been great football teams. So I
They've each won the division twice.
guess that doesn't really say much, then, does it?
So, and that's where it starts. Again, how would the narrative be different if Minshew completes that pass,
Right.
and they win the division, and then it's not 5 years, which is the longest streak since or drought since 98 or 88 to 94, and all those numbers that you just get tired of writing about. But the fact is, that's your resume. It's not enough, and it's obvious though that she put so much weight on 8-2. What might have been she was full-throated behind the Sauce Gardner
Yeah,
trade.
she was very supportive of that.
If Chris had any doubts, she basically said, "No, do it."
Go do it. If you think it's going to make the football
Right.
team better,
Right.
go and do it. It was basically her philosophy. It
So,
sounds
and
like.
again, at 8-2, people don't want to hear it. They were really good, but then they were really bad. You know, only the third time in franchise history they've lost their last 7 games in a season. You should find a way to win a game or two. So, but her trust and belief in Ballard and Steichen were strong enough, and I'm sure the fan base didn't buy a lot of it.
No, I don't think so.
And I understand that.
And she also understands that the fan base is upset, and she herself used several times the word pissed to describe both the fan base's thoughts on how things were going,
Right.
and also for her thoughts on how things were going when the Colts were 8-2 and then suddenly
Right.
8-9 at
Right.
the end of the season.
Right, but again, the fact that she could delineate between the two, and say, yeah, I was confident enough in what we did before the injuries that we're going to try it again with essentially the same main people. This will remain a offense driven team the way they're built. The defense has got to play better. They just have
sure.
to. But this will be an offense-driven team, and I can argue, when they were 8-2, they were pretty good.
But when they were 0-7, they just couldn't win games.
They were good enough to lose.
Good enough to lose.
And that's a bad thing to have. Is like you're finding ways to lose. Make a stop, for crying out loud.
Just a handful of teams have gone 8-2 and then finished with a losing record.
But what was it? They're the first team since in the last 30 years.
Yeah, it's just not a thing that should happen.
And one of 6 teams in the Super Bowl era, I think.
I think that's
to
right.
start 7-1 and not make the
7-1,
playoffs.
right.
So it's all those numbers. We're just stats you get tired of writing about, but they're a fact. And this is going to be the albatross around their neck until they make the playoffs, until they find a way, whether it's a win in the division, whether it's a wild card, and then to do something. Until that happens, everything else is just noise.
Now, we had talked a little bit over the last few weeks over, whether or not, what did I think? Did I think maybe the Colts would move on from Ballard or whether they would keep Steichen? I guess I kind of thought that if they get rid of Ballard, they'd have to get rid of Steichen because it creates an awkward situation when you have a GM.
But she really likes Shane Steichen.
Right. And so I guess you give him one more shot. And I will say this for Steichen. I know the record's not there. I think he's a game under 500 in his two
2
seasons.
8-9s and a 9-8.
And in his 3 seasons here in Indianapolis, but they're not a perfect team. Obviously, if they were, they would be in the playoffs and win the Super Bowl. But I do feel like he has done a good job, especially on the offensive side, of maximizing some of the deficiencies, not maximizing deficiencies, but overcoming some of the deficiencies they have. I mean, for the fact that they almost, and again, I know it's almost, but they almost made the playoffs when Gardner Minshew was their primary quarterback in his first season. And, it's been constant in flux with Anthony Richardson's injuries and stuff. And then when they came out of the gate, man, with Daniel Jones looking like Daniel Jones looked, I can see why you'd want to keep Steichen around a little bit.
It's funny because people do bitch and moan about this. And a lot of us on play calling because if a play doesn't work, you should have done something else.
And he is the primary play caller for the Colts.
But again, when you step back and Shane doesn't need anyone to apologize for him, but he allowed the Indianapolis fan base to see the best of Gardner Minshew. And he got Gardner Minshew a $15 million guarantee from the Raiders.
Right.
And again, when Jones was healthy, this was a top drawer offense. So that's the proof. And should he have been better in game management? Yes, but all the really major criticism comes down to the fact that he's part of the no playoffs and all this. But I thought when he's had the right people healthy, meaning the quarterback, he's been able to maximize the talent around him.
Yeah, I like Steichen. I feel badly that things have not gone as well here in Indianapolis as I had hoped, but he does still possess, I think, one of the brighter offensive minds in football out there.
Right.
And that is worth keeping around, I think, for another season at least. If the Colts regress next year, then, no quarter on that from me anyway.
Right, and that's the playoffs, or else it should be implied next year. And I think everyone in the building understands that. I'm sure Shane Steichen and Chris Ballard understand that, and certainly the owners, the 3 owners, understand that. But and we always talk in the press room because we've got time to kill. But the time to blow this up was either a couple of years ago or next year, after next year, because that's when a lot of the contracts, Quentin and Buck and Jonathan Taylor and all that, and the GM are up. But they're going to try it one more year, and they used up all their mulligans.
Yep.
Prior to this year.
Yes, they did.
And now they're like they got the old fingers crossed and toes crossed, and they'll make the moves, and I think they'll have a competitive roster come September. I hope that it better include a healthy quarterback, because that position, doggone it, is all that really matters. It does. So, but yeah, the sense of urgency has never been higher, and the only level higher than this is to have blown it up. So we'll see where this thing goes.
And blowing it up also, I mean, I know it sounds really easy for fans to do that, fire everybody, fire everything. But that then creates all kinds of problems of itself. Who do you hire? You get a GM, then that means you got to bring in a new coach. And then this means new offensive systems. And what does that mean? That's probably a years-long rebuilding process.
Oh, no, it's 2 or 3 years rebuilding. But and again, a lot of people in the media that I really respect, they say, but what you're doing is not working. It's the old, the definition of insanity.
Yep.
Doing the same thing, expecting different results, and I understand that. Maybe it's the fact that I've been around it for so long, and I've been through those rebuilds, the dark years, and I'm telling you, it sounds really good to say blow it up and start over. It's easy to say that, and it's hard. And on top of that, you got no first-round draft picks for 2 years.
And I had wondered, just kind of if that played a little bit into it too, because how attractive is Indianapolis as a job for somebody?
She would have got a coach in a week. There's only 32 of these jobs.
That's true.
And a GM, they would have.
They'd have figured it out, right?
Yeah. We looked. They've got like 7. There's 7 openings in the league now. They will be filled with what they've got. So I don't think that figured into it, because also people talk, and she was asked, the fact that if you had gone differently and if you fired the coach with 3 years on his contract guaranteed, and a GM with 1 year on his contract guaranteed, you're paying that. Then you're paying their successors. Her response was, I believe, I'm willing to do whatever it takes to win.
Yeah. Well, that would certainly be the case if you're
Right.
going to pay people money.
Pay two head coaches and two GMs.
Right, exactly. I mean, how many coaches has like IU football and IU basketball
Right.
paid
Right.
over the years because they keep moving on.
Right.
So, yeah, it'd be interesting. We're not going to delve into it too much, but we do have the NFL playoffs starting this weekend. Chap, you have any of those games that you're really, really looking forward to?
No, but since we got off the Colts, one thing I want to say real quick. Tom Moore announced his retirement today.
I did not see that.
Yes.
Oh, Tom Moore's best.
He's 87, and what I reposted on Twitter is a legend, one of the best to ever do it, and there needs to be a place in the Hall of Fame for people like him. And I think there needs to be a spot in the Ring of Honor for Tom Moore. I do. One of my all-time favorite guys. Whenever I used to talk to him, he said, "Oh, you need to sell some newspapers, huh?" And I'm thinking, well, not really, but because you're such a great guy to talk with. So I wanted to get that out there. Playoff-wise, no, it's just fun to sit back and watch them and see how. I'm very curious, and part of it is I'm just not an Aaron Rodgers fan. I want to see how they play this first round. I remind people the Colts have won a postseason game more recently than the Steelers. It's like 2016
Jeez.
for the Steelers. So, but and the Jaguars, are they for real?
Yeah.
I maybe so. I still have that little thing where I don't trust them.
We were talking about some of the guys with me in the newsroom, and one of the guys was chiding us because we're like, we don't believe in the Jaguars, and they went out, they won the division and,
Right.
and everything. And I'm like, listen, until they're hoisting the Lombardi Trophy on TV,
Right.
I just cannot believe in the Jaguars.
What was it? Didn't they get to the AFC Championship game with? Was it Blake Bortles? I believe it was.
I think it was, yeah.
And they had like the lead, third or fourth quarter at New England. They were there.
They were there.
And then they Jacksonville.
Found a way to Jaguar themselves into a loss. So, yeah, no, it'd be interesting to see how they go with a lot of stuff happening in the NFL. Obviously, you got the playoffs going on. You've got your multiple openings now. John Harbaugh getting canned in Baltimore just threw me for a loop yesterday. I think it threw a lot of people for a loop. So we'll see. And we'll see if any of this has any impact on the Indianapolis Colts. I don't think ultimately that it will, but we'll see.
Louis Anarumo is going to have a couple of interviews. His name's come up at a couple of places.
He keeps coming up as a head coaching candidate, and I like Lou. So I guess we'll see how things go.
His name was brought up when Brian Dabo was fired with the Giants.
Right.
Immediately came
Immediately.
up. Now, the John Harbaugh thing might alter that because now he's apparently the front runner by a long shot or by a long ways to get that job.
Well, that'll wrap it up for this edition of the Colts Blue Zone Podcast. For Mike Chappell and Dave Griffiths, I'm Matt Adams. We will catch you next time. Thank you for watching and for listening.